Ah, beautiful. Was there any violence or intimidation to get people to vote a certain way? Ah, yes, there was. There are not many accounts of ratification of this whole era that talk much about Federalist mobs. My book has quite a few Federalist mobs. To start off, right away in September, there was a Federalist mob that dragged delegates to the Virginia Assembly. They were playing the same game that we saw, was it Wisconsin last year? In Pennsylvania, you had to have a certain percentage of the full, the quorum requirement was such that if a handful of delegates didn't go, the legislature couldn't do anything. And the Federalists were trying to call a convention very quickly, and delegates, particularly from the western part of Pennsylvania, says, hey, wait a minute, what's the big hurry here? You know, Congress hasn't even reported this out yet. We should wait and see what Congress says. Moreover, our constituents in the western part of the state haven't a clue what's going on. You know, Pennsylvania is bisected by, 100 miles of mountains? You know what, you couldn't fly over them in the 18th century. You know, it was hard. And they said, we need time for the information to be distributed, for people to discuss this, and then to choose delegates. And the Federalist says, no, we're going to have it quick. We're going to be the first state to ratify. And the only way that the dissenters could prevent that was to keep out of the assembly. So the story is really funny as they try to get these people coming in. I tell it, and it's very funny. At one point they go and they say, well, is Mr. X here? And they say, yes, yes. And some look like the chambermaid said, yes, I will get him to speak to you, sir. She's gone a suspicious amount of time. And she comes back and says, turns out he's not here. You know, I guess he was hiding under the bed. But finally they grabbed a couple and dragged them into the assembly. And then there was a discussion, which I say could only be held in a university faculty. It was so absurd, faculty meeting. You know, one delegate says, I'm here under duress, I would like to leave. And they say, you can't leave. If you leave, we won't have a quorum. And then he said, well, read the rules. And the rules say, well, if you're not here when you're supposed to be here, you'll be fined 5 shillings. He says, fine, here's my 5 shillings. I want to leave. And they said, no, that's only if you didn't answer the roll. Now you're here. And then somebody would say, but we can't hold him against his will. And someone says, well, of course we can hold him against his will. And then he tries to run out. And, of course, the Federalist mob is in the back of the hall, and he couldn't get out. There also, there were street fights in Albany. A group of, and they called themselves Antifederalists in the Upper Hudson Valley, celebrated the 4th of July, 1788, by burning a copy of the Constitution. And they thought that was perfectly appropriate to do on the 4th of July because it contested everything that the Revolution had fought for. And then the Federalists had their own little ceremony. It ended up with a terrific brawl in the streets. And then the Federalists trashed the Anti-Federalist favorite tavern. Oh, and then one of my favorite things, after they ratified in New York, a mob went and ripped apart the press of a printer who had uniquely published attacks on the Constitution. It really was not easy to get criticisms of the Constitution printed in this period. We think of an open press. An open press is subject to different definitions and is a relatively more recent achievement. We have a much fuller and richer understanding of freedom of the press than our 18th century ancestors. Yeah.
Question.
Okay. Yeah. One more. Yeah.